Sup guys, That Archon here, bringing another 40k review. Today we'll be going over the newest, probably most badass of the Chaos Space Marine Legions, the Soulforged Warpack. So we'll be doing a full-on detachment view that covers all the special rules, their enhancements, their stratagems, some of their best units. They got a lot of those, by the way. And then at the end of this, I got a few different lists I want to show you guys. I tried, to the best of my ability, to do like a variety, as hard as I'll be with this kind of army, but I did try to include a couple different styles so you guys can get an idea of some of the routes you can take them. As usual, if you haven't already, please consider liking and subscribing. At the very least, if you guys could hit that thumbs up icon, it really does help the channel. Obviously helps the metrics, helps the algorithm, like pick up the videos, makes me feel better about doing these, so I would appreciate if you could do that. By the way, the freaking channel's like blowing up, man. Yeah, we're like cruising super on by 3K. I know I said it before, but from the bottom of my heart, like I appreciate every single one of you. Even if you're not a subscriber, if you're watching this right now, like, you're awesome, you rock, you pat yourself on the back. But with that all out of the way, so Soulforged Warpack, what's so awesome about these guys? Well, first of all, they literally are the newest faction, like, in 40k. Yeah, they're, like, brand new, man. Vashtorr, Vashtorr's been around for a little while, but he was just, like, generic before. Well, now he's got his own freaking legion to lead. Speaking of Vashtorr, this guy has awesome backstory, awesome lore, freaking amazing model. I love this guy. And also, good news for everybody who was trying to run him before, he finally got buffed. He's finally usable. Now, is he that usable in this detachment? Yes, he is. But we'll get into the, we'll get into some of the issues there a little bit later. But for Vashtorr, so super awesome backstory, and what I love is he's so new. So yeah, it's all new lore for us, for the most part. Arcs of Omen went over it, but maybe you're not familiar with it. So, as I understand it, Vashtorr runs, like, the Forge of Souls, so basically where they make a lot of Daemon Engines. Now, there are, like, multiple, like, Soul Forges, I believe they're called, but he runs, like, obviously, like, the big one, the main one. His big thing is that he, like, offers contracts to demons. So demons, the way I understand it, first of all, they have a hard time staying in reality. You know, when you go into the, when you leave the warp to go into reality, you know, it takes a lot of energy to do that. Being in a Daemon Engine apparently makes that easier. On top of that, obviously, when you have, like, a super armor shell and, like, chainsaw for hands and that sort of stuff, makes you a little bit more stronger, especially if you're, like, a puny little demon. That said, though, so this is chaos, so obviously, they're not exactly, like, fair contracts. I will say, though, Vashtorr, he's, like, he's a man of his word. He sticks to his word. Whatever is right, man, like, he sticks to it to a T, but they're not always a fair bargain. The demons are kind of like people in that they don't really think ahead, because what happens when they get stuck in this, so there's, like, 3 stipulations for becoming a Daemon Engine, with Vashtorr specifically. Any and all souls you collect, so anybody you kill, basically, has to go to the Forge of Souls, so he can make more Daemon Engines going forward. The second part, any, like, wrecks, any vehicles that they destroy that are on the battlefield, those all go to the Forge of Souls, so obviously he can make more of them. And then the last and most important stipulation, if Vashtorr or his Forge ever gets attacked, they have to come and help defend him. Like, they have to, even if it's their own god attacking the Forge. They are, like, bound by blood to come and defend the Forge of Souls. But, like I was saying, so they don't think ahead. So the issue with it, if you're giving up all the souls you collect, and you're, like, giving up on your own god, well, you're not going to gain any power going forward. So yes, you gain a temporary power boost, but you're basically stuck there for eternity afterwards, which is just stupid. You're in the warp, man. You live for eternity. Like, why limit yourself? Why give yourself a glass ceiling, So, I love his backstory. Oh yeah, one last thing. He's trying to become the 5th Chaos God, so, screw the Horned Rat, am I right? But, yeah, it's pretty awesome. Ooh, and one other awesome bit. He freaking stole the Dark Angel's planet. He stole Caliban, and he's using it, and dude, now it's like his own little, like, spaceship. He teleports around, like, murdering stuff, screwing with the Imperium, using the freaking Dark Angel's old planet. So if you hate the Dark Angels, this is probably the best possible legion you could pick. So, obviously, pretty awesome character. I'm excited to see, like, what else we learn as time goes on. Very much so. Like, obviously, new lore's awesome. They're finally, like, progressing the story, so that's cool that we're not stuck in, like, the year 3999 anymore. But beyond that, though, what makes Soulforged Warpack so awesome? Well, you got the obvious bit, man, and my favorite part, and why, like, this is very much my favorite legion. They got Daemon Engines up the wazoo. You can literally make armies, make lists that are nothing but Daemon Engines. Dude, that's like a dream come true. I was already doing that before, but now it's like, actually like meshes with each other. You're not at all handicapping yourself. In fact, it's quite the opposite. There is definitely the argument that this might be one of the best detachments in the entire game. I would say they're very much up there. Now, there are some downsides. We'll get to that in a moment, but very much, I think these guys, like, definitely give Renegade Raiders, Veterans of the Long War, like, all those guys. These guys give them a run for their money. there will be situations in certain matchups where these are like the perfect pick. If maybe your local meta, you fight a lot of like knights all the time, bada bing, bada boom, man, bring some Soulforged Warpack, they ain't no thing. Maybe you fight a lot of, even like Chaff, dude, it's just like universally useful. We'll get into the specifics, but long story short, like you get +1 to wound on all your shooting. Dude, even like infantry, you're gonna launch through them. Can you imagine how much a Khorne Lord of Skulls is gonna love that with like his Gatling gun, or better yet, the Skull Hurler? Like, you got a million options there. On top of the great, like, Detachment Rule, they have I think it's, like, undebatably the best enhancement, definitely for Chaos, potentially in the game. So that's pretty awesome. The other enhancements are pretty decent as well. Their stratagems are fantastic and help, like, shore up the army. In fact, one of the stratagems, again, we'll get into specifics when we get there, but one of the stratagems, like, makes this army work. Without that stratagem, this army would have a much harder time, like, especially in a competitive sense. Because, yeah, man, a lot of boards are really terrain dense these days, and they have, like, one of them is, like, being able to move through walls. That is such a key stratagem. GW, like good job, GW. They thought ahead, they thought it through, obviously, because, like, you guys would really struggle if we didn't have that, and that is a huge, like, do not underestimate how big a deal that is. Again, I definitely think these guys are a contender for one of the most powerful armies in the game, and beyond that, dude, they're just fun. I know me, personally, like, 100%, the reason I got into CSM was the fact that they had Daemon Engines. I remember Lord Discordant specifically, even though he's not a Daemon Engine, like, how stupid that is, but Lord Discordant was the reason I got in the army. After him, I just bought a bunch of, like, Defilers, Maulerfiends, all that sort of stuff. I even own, the Decimators. God, I miss those guys. So that alone is pretty awesome. Now, like I did hint at, there are some downsides, and actually, if you think about it, there's a decent amount of downsides. For one thing, they're expensive as hell, man. Not only in real life, like money, like dollars, like some of them are cheap. Venomcrawler, if you don't already own one, these used to be like 30 bucks on eBay. I wouldn't be surprised if they've gone up a little bit, but regardless, they're super cheap to get your hands on. But if you need like 6 Maulerfiends, 6 Forgefiends, well, 3 Maulerfiends, 3 Forgefiends, which is definitely like a route like optimally, that's a route you'd want to go, that gets pretty spendy. Again, not only in real dollars, but also in points. Also, too, a minor issue, sorta. A lot of lists get kind of samey. You only have so many Daemon Engine options. I think there's like 6 of them, something like that, so there's only so many you can choose from. That said, when we get into the list, you guys will see that, yes, you can still make variety, and 100,000% do not forget to bring, like, infantry for, like, scoring and chaff and, like, screening, all that sort of stuff. That's going to be, like, a key to having, like, a truly competitive list if you're going the competitive route. Because, again, these guys are fantastic for casual players, and I do think they'll be really popular in both senses, both Garage Hammer and like tournament play. They do a boatload of damage to themselves, probably more than even the Chaos Cults. Like, they're just, like, killing themselves as the game goes on. If you roll bad, well, especially if you roll bad. That said, there are ways to deal with that. Mr. Warpsmith's going to be a extremely common sight for that very reason, but do be aware that, yeah, when they fail their Dark Pacts, they're taking an extra mortal wound on top of it. Starts to add up over time, kind of hurts. Regardless, though, I do think the pros, like, far outweigh the cons with these guys, and again, I think you're going to see them, like, everywhere. I think they're going to be extremely common for reasons that should be obvious. With all that said, though, so we can finally hop into the detachment rules themselves. So these guys have Debt to the Soulforge. Each time a Heretic Astartes Demon Vehicle unit from your army makes a Dark Pact, it can invoke its contract. If it does, subtract 1 from the resulting leadership test, and until the end of the phase, when making a ranged attack, you can add 1 to the wound roll, and add 2 to the attacks characteristic of melee weapons equipped by models in that unit. So, the fact that this boosts both your ranged and your melee is such a big win from GW, because that means, like, any and every Demon Engine is, like, valid here. And especially, most definitely the ones that are, like, multi-roll, so Venomcrawler's gonna freaking love it, Khorne Lord of Skulls, like, ultra super duper is gonna love it. So that right there is pretty awesome. Beyond that, even the ones that are more focused, so, like, Maulerfiend getting +2 attacks on his freaking melee profile, like, he already has, like, some of the most damaging, like, melee, like, in the game, it's pretty up there. Like, getting more of that, like, that's pretty awesome. And then, obviously, shooter units. Can you imagine how much the Forgefiend's gonna love +1 to wound, dude? He becomes literally anti-everything. You get Vashtorr next to him, he's gonna be wounding vehicles on 2s. Now, do be careful when using this, though, because, again, there will be times when, like, you're doing a lot of damage to yourself. Forgefiend's perfect example. He gets hazardous if he uses the ability. So, dude, like, potentially, you could be doing, what? You could do 11 wounds to yourself. If the stars align, you have the worst rolls possible. I believe you could do 11 wounds to yourself. Like, so do be mindful of that. That said, though, even with the -1 leadership, I believe it still ends up, like, I believe you have a 58% chance to pass it. I believe that's, like, if you're getting all technical or whatever, it's still 58%. So the majority of the time, you'll still be passing those tests, so it's not the worst. And again, you can mitigate it with something like a Warpsmith, which, by the way, like, 1,000,000,000%, you're going to include at least one of these. Often you're going to include 3 of these into your list. Speaking of Warpsmith, don't forget that he gives you +1 to hit. On top of that, he heals your profiles. He screws with the enemy vehicles. Like, oh my god, man. We'll get into that too. The amount of buffs that you can stack onto certain units gets pretty redonks. This army might have the most amount of like buffs that you can stack on a single unit. And it's not even necessarily a single unit. You can spread the love around and just get a ridiculous amount of buffs on like your key units. Dude, a freaking Forgefiend that's rerolling all hits, +1 to wound, hitting on 2s, oh my god, like, +1 AP, like, yeah, dude, you get +2 AP if you want to. It gets nuts so good. We're getting into Clown Town here. Not a single unit won't benefit from this Detachment Rule, at least obviously for Daemon Engines. Not a single one isn't getting a boatload of value, man. Other armies would kill for just one of those buffs. +2 attacks, Orcs would love that. +1 to wound, like, freaking Votann would love that. Like, everybody would, like, like, be all over that. We get both of them on top of some crazy good enhancements. Speaking of, so for enhancements, these guys do have some of the very best. So first up, you've got Invigorated Mecha Tendrils. So Warpsmith model only, and you add 4 inches to the bearer's move characteristic. So it is only 15 points, not too spendy. I think this one's actually pretty good. Reason being, these guys normally only move 6 inches. The vast majority of your Daemon Engines move like 10 inches. Like almost all of them. Some are faster. Venomcrawler's 12 inches. Some are a little slower. You know, Mr. Khorne, Lord of Skull, he's a big guy. He's gotta take his time. He moves 8 inches. But regardless, I do think that has value. Because for sure, especially if you're playing like an aggressive list, so like Maulerfiends certainly, Defilers as well, any of those sort of things, they're gonna run ahead of your Warpsmith pretty quick. When you see some of the other enhancements that we can have, like, you'll see, you know, why you don't always want to leave your Warpsmiths, but regardless, +4-inch movement helps, you know, helps guarantee that you can stay in range. Now, I will say, obviously, you can always just advance the guys, so there is that. They don't have the best damage output, like, at all. Also, too, the very last place on the planet I want my Warpsmith to be is within 12 inches of the enemy army, so not very often am I even going to move past, like, not even, like, my deployment zone. So, it is debatable if it's, like, that good or not, but I do think it's, like, sneaky good. If at the end of writing your list, after you bring the other relics and whatnot, you still have points left over, yeah, I would definitely look into that. Alright, next up though, we got the banger. We got the, hands down, like the best relic in the book, probably one of the best in the game. So, Tempting Addendum. Heretic Astartes model only, so you can put on anybody for what that's worth. Each time a Heretic Astartes demon vehicle from your army invokes its contract while within 3 inches of the bearer, first of all, if it fails its Dark Pact, it adds 1 to the number of mortal wounds it takes, so, you know, that kind of stinks there. But, until the end of the phase, each time a model in that unit makes an attack, you can reroll the hit roll. Again, the Warpsmith gives you +1 to hit, so guys, you're hitting on 2s with one model at least, hitting on 2s, reroll all hits, +1 wound, maybe got +2 attacks, there's much more, +1 AP, like all sorts of stuff you can toss on top of that. Now, it is spendy, it's a 25-point relic, so it's pretty up there, but I'll be honest, man, I would pay more than that. I would pay a lot more than that. Maybe don't let GW know, because I don't want him, like, nerfing it that bad, but I would pay, like, 40 freaking points for that. That is not so good. Unfortunately, you know, obviously only one model can have it, but again, guys, it's so worth it. It's basically like it's like a 265-point rebate on bringing Abaddon, because Abaddon would give you similar. Well, no, man, I'm just going to pay 25 points instead of the 295 or whatever the hell he is. That very much is an auto-include. That is like a mandatory relic. You do not play this detachment unless you're bringing that relic. If you're not bringing that, like, why are you even playing these guys? Like, we can't be friends if you're not bringing that along. What's awesome, too, so 3-inch bubble, so yeah, it's a little small, but, you know, do be aware, something like a Defiler's gonna love it. He can just put his little tiptoe in there. Even, like, Maulerfiends are still gonna love it. They can get, like, the tip of their base in there, so, like, it's not gonna be that hard to give the buff to, dude, you probably give it to, like, 6 models or something if you really go hardcore on it. But, what's awesome, this guy gets Lone Operative if he's within 3 inches of a vehicle, period. So, cool, you got an unshootable, super duper ultra buffy, cheap, by the way, he's only 70 points baseline, cheap model, that again, he's invulnerable to shooting unless they get in there, and probably the last place your opponent's going to want to be is, like, within 12 inches of all your freaking Daemon Engines that are ready to slice and dice. Again, I think this is, like, the best enhancement in the entire game, and every single list. Like, before you start adding anything else to your list, you need to put a Warpsmith with the Tempting Addendum in there, and that's just how every single list, like, starts. Now, again, you can put on any model, so the tinfoil, like, conspiracy theory part of my brain is saying, I wonder if Lord Discordant's an okay choice. Reason being, he has a huge base. Look at how much bigger his base is than this guy. It's literally, like, 3, maybe 4 times bigger, so you would get more, like, coverage, more board coverage. Obviously, that's silly. He doesn't give the +1 to hit. He doesn't boost your Daemon Engines at all. He doesn't heal them, any of that sort of stuff, but there is some fun plays with that. So if you're going for, like, a fluffy, fun list, because Lord Discordant, come on, even though he's not technically a Daemon Engine, like, he is a Daemon Daemon Engine. So very much, if you're doing themed lists, 100,000% you bring a Lord Disco, and yeah, you toss that relic right on top of them. Alright, next up though, we got another really good one. So, Forge's Blessing. Heretic Astartes model only. In your command phase, select one friendly Heretic Astartes vehicle within 12 inches of the bearer. Until the start of your next command phase, that unit gets the Feel No Pain 6-up ability. So again, this might be a good choice for like Lord Discord. More commonly, you'll put on a like second Warpsmith. I do think this one's like sneaky strong. First of all, it works on any vehicle, not just Daemon Engines. That said though, something like a Khorne Lord of Skulls with a 6-up, that's a big boost, man. A 6-up Feel No Pain is the same as like a 20% boost. I believe it's like an extra 5 wounds he would get. On top of that, models like the Forgefiend, it's going to be kind of vital for that sort of guy, especially if you're using his hazardous profile. That is huge, man, because again, you could be doing boatloads of mortal wounds to yourself. Same with doing the contracts. You potentially do 4 wounds to yourself just by using your Dark Pact, while having a 6-up Feel No Pain doesn't, like, you know, negate all of it, or even that much, but every little wound helps you, like, stay above halfway, helps you stay, like, where you're damaged and you get -1 to hit, so I do think that's a big one. 20 points is pretty fair, man, especially if you're bringing like a Khorne Lord Skulls. I would heavily consider that relic for sure, and even if you're not, even if you're just going like the Defiler route, those sort of things, again, I do think that's like the runner-up is like the second best enhancement. And like I said, it can go on any Heretic Astartes, so not even Lord Disco, not even Warpsmith. You could put on like a Demon Prince, you put on like, I don't know, a Jump Lord, something like that, so they can stay in range. 12-inch range, by the way, is like really good as well. Definitely get a lot of value. Don't forget, it lasts through multiple phases, so all of your turn and all of your opponent's turn. So again, for 20 points, I think that's a fair deal. Alright, last up though, we got Soul Harvester. Heretic Astartes model only. While the bearer is on the battlefield, each time an enemy unit within 12 inches is destroyed, roll 1d6. On a 5-up, you gain 1 command point. Ugh, I will say, if Lord Discordance were good, this would be like an auto-include probably, because yeah, dude, he gets in the thick of things, he loves being there. Unfortunately, we don't really have room for extra leaders in this attachment, because again, guys, you're pretty much always bringing like 3 Warpsmiths, potentially Vashtorrs come along, like you got enough HQs as it is, so it's hard to bring like an extra one just to like be a relic caddy. Now that said, it is still pretty cool, and it definitely has value. Like every CSM Legion, these guys are starved for command points. The 12-inch bubble is huge, and what's awesome is it's every single time, so it works on your turn and your opponent's turn. Like, you know, that won't always come up killing stuff on your opponent's turn, but for sure, from like a lot of time it will, especially if you have big meaty like melee monsters. It is only 15 points, like that's pretty fair, man. You could totally toss that on like a Jump Lord, put him in the enemy's deployment zone, or you know, wherever. He gets within 9 inches with his deep strike, so you can get whoever you need within 12-inch bubble. Maybe you know for certain that you're gonna wipe out like 2 units or so. You get 2 chances. Even though it's a 5-up, you still get multiple chances on it. So I am like kind of torn on that. CP region, like it's been a theme for all the detachment views I've done. You know, the CP region, there's always like CP's good, but ooh, you know, it's not always the best one, so I am torn on it. I'd be curious your guys' thoughts on that one. Like, do you think that's pretty good? Truthfully, that's probably one of the better ones, because again, you can like give yourself multiple chances. There will be turns when you get like 4 chances of rolling that 5-up, so it's not the worst thing ever, but definitely not like an auto-include even in the least bit, and again, it has some really stiff competition. So overall, these guys have one of, if not the, best relics in the entire game, and then they have a few like decent ones as like runner-up or like consolation prizes. I do like the plus 4-inch movement. I think it's like sneaky pretty useful. The 6-up Feel No Pain, the Forge's Blessing, I do think that one's really strong. I do think you try to include that list if you're able to, especially if you go like the vehicle route. I should have mentioned in the beginning that, and you're about to find out in a moment, that you can make vehicles demon, so they're going to be re-rolling all their hits and all that sort of fun stuff too. So yeah, I am extremely pleased with how GW did with the enhancements. Obviously, I'm extremely pleased with the Detachment Rule. How about the Strategems? How are those looking? They must suck, right? Well, as with every Legion, that's where these guys really do pop. I'll spill the beans right now. They do not suck in the least bit. They're actually pretty damn awesome, and they definitely like make this detachment work. Without some of the stratagems they have, these guys again would have such a hard time in certain situations, especially like terrain dense boards, all that sort of stuff. They would definitely like struggle. Well, luckily GW thought it through, and they gave us some really, really useful ones. So first up, you got Desperate Pledge. In your shooting phase or your fight phase, one Heretic Astartes demon vehicle that is not shot or fought yet. Until the end of the phase, if your unit invokes its contract, each time it makes an attack, improve its armor pen by 1. So obviously, this one's pretty goddamn strong. You already got the what? You got reroll hits, You're hitting on 2s, you got +1 to wound, maybe you got +2 attacks, now you're adding +1 AP on top of everything. Maybe you're awesome and you bring a Terminator Sorcerer and you got +2 AP on top of that. It's only 1 command point, which blows my mind. Like, god damn, dude. Yeah, it just gets stupid. It just gets, like, wild how like, good this army is. Now, if there was a downside, if there was such a thing for that, it is a battle tactic. Obviously, Lords can't be attached to Daemon Engines, sadly. Lord Disco should totally give him, like, a discount. Like, that'd be awesome. But anyways, he doesn't help with that, none of that. So, you gotta think, your opponent could make that cost more. And that would very much be a stratagem that, like, if I was your opponent, very much I'd be considering making that one cost you an extra CP every time. We're already starved for command points as it is, so do be aware of that. I guess it, like, sorta has a downside. But that said, it's not really something to worry about, because for the most part, most armies, in fact, it's kind of rare. Most armies don't really bring that anymore. Now they change it to just battle tactics, so it's, you know, every now and then you'll see it. And I'll say on top of that, you don't need that for the army to work. It's just like a super strong boost for when you do need it. Alright, next up though, we've got what's probably my favorite one. Yeah, this is probably my favorite one for this Legion. So, Unstoppable Rampage. In your movement phase or your charge phase, 1 Heretic Astartes vehicle from your army. Until the end of the phase, each time that unit makes a normal, advance, or charge move, you can move through terrain as if it were not there. I cannot possibly express, like, how valuable and vital a stratagem that is. One of the biggest, like, weaknesses of vehicles in general, by the way, it works on any vehicle, so maybe, we'll get into that in a second, but maybe, like, your Vindicator needs line of sight or something like that, but one of the biggest issues with 10th edition, period, is, yeah, dude, terrain and, like, moving stuff around, stuff that's not infantry or beast has a lot of trouble getting around the board. Defiler with his huge freaking profile, like, he has a hell of a time getting around the board, like always, even when the boards weren't as terrain dense, like, yeah, he definitely struggled there. But being able to ignore that twice, by the way, you can do it in your movement and your charge phase. So again, maybe you need line of sight on one of your shooting units, Forgefiend, something like that, so you use it there, and then boom, I'm gonna charge my Defiler, who you couldn't shoot because I was hiding behind line of sight. Well, I'm just gonna move right through the wall and you know, charge your key unit there. This is very much one of the stratagems I'd be saving CP for and very much, like, planning for. What's cool is you only really need it on, like, key turns. So first turn, like, it's doubtful that you'll use it. 100%, there will be times when you use it first turn, but it's doubtful you use it then. Second turn, maybe you're not in range, maybe you already got line of sight, whatever the reason is, you might not use it there. But when it comes up, dude, it's gonna be such a big deal. It's sort of a gotcha, too. It's so easy for your opponent to, A, forget, and B, like, sometimes they just can't, you know, there's, like, nothing they can do about it. They gotta get on the objective, whatever the reason is. Well, yeah, man, that wall in between us, it ain't no thing. It's not even there. Again, I would be, like, planning for this and saving my command points for this, pretty much, like, every single game. I freaking love it. It's one of the best stratagems they got, and again, it's vital. If they didn't have that, this army would have struggled a lot more. Next up, though, so we've got Glut of Souls. In your fight phase, 1 Heretic Astartes demon vehicle, excluding Titanic, that has not been selected to fight yet. Until the end of the phase, if your unit invokes its contract, each time it makes an attack that destroys an enemy model, roll a d6. On a 5-up, you gain 1 lost wound to a maximum of 6. So this one's, it's not, like, fantastic, but on certain units it will be, like, pretty useful, and for sure, there will be times when it's, like, vital. Something like a Maulerfiend with the tentacles. So I almost always run him with the Melta, but that would almost make me, like, tempted to put the tentacles on him. But with the tentacles, he has what? I believe he has, like, 13 attacks, something like that. You got reroll all hits, potentially reroll all hits, hitting on 2s, a +2 attacks, so yeah, he'd have what? That'd be 15 attacks? If you go into, like, Chaff, even if you go into, like, Elites, like, it doesn't matter, whatever you go into, you would have pretty good odds of regaining, like, 3 to 4 wounds. Again, if you roll a little hot, like, you gain even more than that. That'd be huge if he's, like, on his last leg. Don't forget, when you're under half wounds, you have to take battle shock tests. I don't like taking battle shock tests. So yes, that actually is a big deal. Maybe you're, like, holding down an objective with one of your Daemon Engines, and again, he's under half strength. You don't want to risk it. Well, boom, you just use this. I mean, yeah, you gotta, like, kill stuff, but hey, that's what we want to do anyways. Alright, next up, though, so we got another, like, really good one. Seeing a theme here. So, Predatory Pursuit. In your opponent's movement phase, just after an enemy unit ends a normal, advance, or fall back move, 1 Heretic Astartes vehicle from your army that's within 9 inches of that unit and not within engagement range. Your unit can make a normal move of up to 6 inches, but it must end that move as close as possible to that enemy unit. So this one obviously does have the rider of having to move as close as possible to the enemy unit. It also doesn't say that you can go in engagement range, which kind of sucks. I wish they at least gave us, like, toss it a bone there. That said, that would be, like, pretty ultra powerful. Be aware, too, you cannot use the ignore terrain move as well. That only works on your movement phase. So if an enemy comes in, it's, you know, it's obviously it's their turn. So you can't do that, as fun as that would be. All that said, though, versus certain armies, this will be ultra strong. I think the perfect example is Tau. Tau want to be nowhere near within 9 inches of you, and in fact, I believe one of their detachments, I believe it revolves around being within 9 inches. Don't they get +1 AP or something like that if they're within 9? So, dude, that, like, straight up just counters that army, like, on its own. Astra Militarum are gonna hate it. Like, anybody that doesn't really have decent melee or whatever, yeah, very much they're gonna hate it. There will be silly situations, too, where it'll get you, like, behind line of sight, onto an objective, all that sort of stuff. You got the obvious bit that, like, on your turn, even though you couldn't end an engagement range of them, on your turn, now you just have, like, a 1-inch charge, whatever it is. So that is super duper strong. Just has the rider. It's not nearly as good as the normal reactive moves that you see. Normally you can, like, move any direction, or again, get an engagement range with them. That said, overall, it's still pretty damn useful. Alright, next up, we've got one of my favorites. Yeah, for sure, I love this one. So, Demonic Possession. In your command phase, select one Heretic Star's vehicle from your army. Until the end of the battle, that model gains the demon keyword. So obviously, this one's pretty damn awesome. Reason being, Mr. Vindicator, Mr. Predator, Mr. I'm trying to think, what other vehicles would you bring? Mr. Land Raider, maybe? Turning them into a demon, dude, suddenly they get access to the hitting on 2s, reroll all hits, +1 AP, +1 Owen, but, you know, like, it keeps going on and on and on. Funnily enough, a Helbrute technically isn't a Demon Engine, so you know, give him the buffs that he deserves from the get-go. Sadly, Lord Discordant is not a vehicle for some stupid reason, don't ask me why, so he doesn't get to benefit from it, but still, you know, rule of cool and all, so you still bring him along. This one's unique, too, in that it lasts until the end of the battle. I'm not sure 10th edition has any other stratagems that say that. Now, be careful. When I was first writing up lists, I very much was like, ooh, I'm gonna bring, like, 3 Vindicators and 3 Predators. I'm gonna go wild, make all of them demons. First of all, that's eating up your command points, so be careful there. Second of all, you can only do 1 per turn, so, like, yeah, dude, if you had 3 of them, it'd take you 3 turns just to do that. Maybe they don't survive that long. Maybe the Warpsmith, like, gets taken care of, whatever the reasons are. So I don't think you want to overdo it. I think 1 Vindicator, or, like, maybe 2 Predators, something like that. I think, like, that's the route you want to go, but still, all that said, that is an awesome stratagem. Lets you bring literally any vehicle, dude, and it'd be great for, like, kit bashes and conversions. Maybe, like, you're an awesome modeler. Ooh, you can make some really cool looking models there, dude. Make your Vindicator a freaking Demon Engine. I love the thought behind that. That said, though, so especially when we get into the unit review part of this section, I'll show you how many buffs you guys can toss onto some of these models. Something like a Vindicator very much is going to love that. Even a Predator, he becomes, like, the most efficient shooting in the entire game. I'm not sure. Somebody, like, post a comment below on who you think would be more efficient at shooting than this freaking guy when he's buffed up with a Daemon Engine and gets all the buffs from the Warpsmith. I'm not sure there's anything near 130 points that gets anywhere, like, even close to the amount of damage he's going to be doing. Very much. I love this stratagem. Yeah, I think it's very fluffy as well. Yeah, so good job, GW. Alright, last up, though, we've got Feeding Frenzy. In your opponent's movement phase, when an enemy unit, excluding monsters and vehicles, is selected to fall back, you can choose 1 Heretic Astartes demon vehicle that's within engagement range of that enemy unit. Until the end of the phase, each time an enemy unit, excluding monsters and vehicles, that is within engagement range of your unit falls back, all models in that unit must take a Desperate Escape test. When doing so, if they are battle shocked, subtract 1 from the test. So this one, low-key, is, like, insanely strong. This is one of the stronger ones, definitely for this Legion, potentially in the book, potentially in the game, dude, at least in certain situations. So any and every unit that falls back, aside from the vehicles and monsters, is taking 1/3 casualties at least. If they're battle shocked, though, and that's where it, like, really pops off, they're taking 50% casualties, dude. And that works on anything, so it's not a vehicle or monster. I've had a game where I was playing Astra Militarum, and I forget his name, Leonidas, whatever that dude's name is, the main leader for the entire faction. He failed his battle shock and died. However many points that guy is, like, boom, dude, he's just gone. I didn't have to hit him or whatever. That gets huge. Maybe they got really expensive elites, so, like, Custodes is a perfect example. Terminators, that sort of stuff. If they're battle shocked, as rare as that might be, 50% casualties for a single CP, dude. Imagine if it's like a 10-model unit. Better yet, maybe there's multiple units stuck in combat, and they, like, don't want to be stuck in combat with you, so you got, like, a Defiler fighting, I don't know, Chaff or Space Marines, something like that. The last thing they want to do is stay in combat with you. Maybe they're battle shocked, though, and they're like, well, you know, I'm screwed if I do, screwed if I don't. Again, I think that's ultra powerful, and in a way, it, like, forces people to stay in combat with you. Because, yeah, man, they don't want to fall back. Don't forget, your vehicles, you get to shoot in combat, too, so even if you have a a shooty guy, dude. You screw him over for, oh, you wanted to charge me? Well, you're going to pay the price, man. Maybe they have stratagems that let them, like, fall back, shoot, and charge. Like, that's a pretty common thing these days. Like, again, this, like, negates that. Even if they're not battle shocked, 1 CP to take out a third of a unit is huge. A third of multiple units, potentially, is huge. Now, where it gets really fun is when you start comboing it off stuff. You bring, like, Raptors, man. Raptors give -1 to your leadership and leadership test and battle shock test. Like, that's pretty rare. They give -1 to both of those. Ooh, alright, the super duper, like, fun combo. You bring Slaaneshi Fiends. Fiends give an additional -1 to those Desperate Escape tests. Oh my god, can you imagine how strong that is? Like, that's so strong that I kind of want to make a list that just, like, revolves around that. And in fact, mark my words, I'm going to do that, and I'm going to catch people with their pants down, because that is incredibly strong. Again, do not underestimate Feeding Frenzy. I think it's low-key one of the best stratagems in the game. At least for, like, yeah, dude, it's not even damage, it's just models you kill. Like, you don't even, maybe they have, like, 6 wound, crazy infantry or whatever. Doesn't matter, man. You roll a 1 or 2, or a 1 to a 3, you're dead. Yeah, dude, I think it's, yeah, definitely one you do not at all want to forget. Probably want to try to save CP for it as well. So overall, not only do they have, like, incredibly good stratagems, they have incredibly good enhancements, and they have some of the better, like, detachment rules. Like, dude, what is not to love about these guys? So, you know, post a comment below if there's something not to love about these guys, and you can go on ahead and unsubscribe while you're at it. Now, dude, like, I can't tell you how, like, hyped I am on these guys and how excited I am to, like, play them more. I very much plan to be running these guys as, like, my main faction, at least for the near term. Gonna run them, like, tournaments. The next RTT that comes up, I'm probably gonna bring these guys. It's not like, it's not for sure. I'll probably write a Renegade Raiders list, and then write a Soulforged Warpack list and just compare the two, but very much, I think these guys are contenders for one of the most powerful. We're about to get into the units section, and dude, the number of buffs that you can throw on a single unit gets outrageous. It should have been obvious so far. All those stratagems you got access to, again, the detachment rules, there is nothing not to love about these guys. GW knocked it out of the park like 1,000 miles with these guys. Super excited to get them on the table. Alright, next up though, so my favorite part, we're going to go over all their top units. So, obviously, I'm going to go over every single Daemon Engine, even the kind of stinkers or whatever, they deserve some love. Big reason for that, too. I'm actually, like, so excited to do this video. I've been, like, I've been putting this off for weeks, and I knew I'd get super hyped, if you guys couldn't tell. But, like, Heldrake, man, I'm probably not going to get to talk about him a lot, at least for, like, competitive reviews. Well, this is the perfect time to, like, you know, bust him out and actually give him some love. Some of that love he deserves. So, first of all, we got Vashtorr. This guy got a lot of buffs in the new codex. This card's old, so what's on here isn't necessarily, like, the same. So first of all, he went up to toughness 10, which is a pretty big deal, man. Like, yeah, obviously that helps with the anti-tank, definitely helps with, like, anything strength 5 or below, like, that's a big deal there. Beyond that, he already has a great profile, 12-inch move, 2-up save with a 4-up end ball, that's huge, 14 wounds, 3 objective controls, like, it's okay there. On top of that, his melee got super boosted, so his strike profile still has anti-vehicle 4-up and dev wounds, that's pretty big there. Still 6 attacks, but it's going to be strength 14, AP 2, 3 damage each. Now, do beware, he's neither a vehicle nor, like, a Daemon Engine, so unfortunately, it's actually really funny. He doesn't benefit from any of the detachment rules. Like, not a single one helps him. I'm not even sure any of the stratagems work on this guy, but he does still have very powerful abilities, and they're definitely, like, worth bringing along. His first one, the Unholy Mechanisms. While a friendly demon vehicle is within 6 inches of this model, add 1 to the strength characteristic of weapons equipped by that model. So that affects both their shooting and their melee. Something like a Forgefiend is going to absolutely love that. Going to strength 11 is such a big deal, man. Now you're wounding tanks on 2s when you're shooting. Gets pretty wild there. Even your Vindicators, your Predators, if you make them demons, suddenly they're getting +1 strength. And in fact, what I really like about that, a Predator sort of becomes like a discounted, like, Vindicator or whatever. You're getting his cannon goes to strength 10, so suddenly he's doing anti-vehicle. His freaking las cannons go to strength 13. You can stick with the heavy bolters, go to strength 6, I believe, so now you're winning T3 on 2-ups. Well, you're already winning them on 2-ups anyways. Yeah, dude, it definitely has a lot of value there. His other ability got super boosted too, so now it's called Reorder Reality, and basically what it does, all enemy units within 18 inches, even if you can't see them, their weapons become hazardous. Dude, that is nutso. Anytime they shoot, 1/6 of their unit is going to just, like, delete itself. He has pretty okay shooting as well, so he's got Vashtorr's Claw. I really wish they renamed it, but it's a torrent weapon, so, you know, auto hits, D6 attacks, strength 5, -2 AP, 1 damage each, so that's pretty powerful there. He can also deep strike, so that's huge, man. You can just buff, like, wherever it needs to be. I do think Vashtorr has some use. A lot of people are, like, memeing on him, because, yeah, he doesn't get any sort of, like, buffs whatsoever from the detachment, but no, dude, he still has uses, especially the +1 +1 strength, and I think that hazardous. I think that's crazy good. I forget if it works on melee as well. If it does, this guy does gain like even more value there. He is kind of spindy, 190 points, but that's pretty fair for the profile you're getting. Yeah, dude, Vashtorr, he's also like ultra fluffy and themey, and his model is sick as hell, so like 1000%, man. If you want to run him, you're not really handicapping yourself by bringing him along. Definitely think he's like worth considering. Alright, next up though, the big dog. So we got Warpsmith. This guy is an auto-include, at least ×1, a lot of times ×3. I think 2 to 3, it goes in like every single list. So first of all, he's cheap, dude. He's only 70 points. That's a steal for all the abilities this guy's giving you. He has a pretty good profile. He actually has a really good profile when you consider it. 6-inch move, slow, T4, whatever, but he has a 2-up save. That is huge. 2-up save is like obviously hard to chew through. Better than that, he gets lone op when he's within 3 inches of a vehicle. Of course, this guy's going to be glued to your vehicle. He's probably going to be glued to like 3 to 6 of them, so like good luck like shooting this guy beyond 12 inches. If they do get within 12 inches, well, I'm just going to delete whatever came near me, man, because I'm charging you right after. I'm getting payback for it. He has ultra good abilities, most definitely when you combine him with everything else. So, Master of Mechanisms. In your command phase, you choose one Heldrake Starry's vehicle within 3 inches of this dude. That vehicle regains up to D3 wounds. Also, you add 1 to the hit roll for any attacks it makes, both melee and ranged. Dude, you bring 3 of these guys, which is definitely a route that you're going to want to consider, and that's 3 different vehicles, rerolling all hits, hitting on 2s, +1 to wound, +1 AP, maybe +2 AP, depending on how you do it. Maybe ignores cover, depending on how you add on. Dude, it gets nuts, so +2 attacks in melee. Oh my god, I can't even, like, express how many, like, buffs you get on it. Just from this one guy. Him alone, he's given, what, 2 buffs? You got the enhancement on him, that's 3 buffs. Like, oh, it's crazy. For 70 points, this guy's an auto-include times, yeah, probably 3. I said 1 to 3. Now, you probably bring 3, like, every single time. And again, he's a steal at only 70 points. Very much, you need to be, like, buying this model if you don't already own it. On top of that, he has Enraged Machine Spirits. So at the end of your movement phase, you select one enemy vehicle within 12 inches, doesn't have to be visible or anything, and they have to take a battle shock. It's not like the biggest deal ever, but it does add up, man. Maybe they're like holding down a primary, maybe you don't want them to use their own stratagems, that's like a really big reason to use it. Like, definitely has value there. Maybe you combo with the Raptors, and you're gonna use the stratagem to do like fall. Well, I guess that doesn't work on vehicles, but either way, this guy is very much an auto-include, belongs in every single list. You don't run Soulforged Warpack without at least one of these guys. Alright, next up though, we've got the big man himself. We've got the Terminator Sorcerer. This guy belongs in every army period. Here, he will also do fantastic. Reason being, he's got the Death Hex. So, at the start of your shooting phase, one Psyker with this ability can use it. If it does, you choose an enemy within 12 inches and visible. You roll a d6. On a 1, your day is ruined, but on a 2-up, until the start of your next movement phase, each time an attack targets that enemy unit, you add 1 to the armor pin. Dude, that is gigantic. You already have a stratagem to give you +1 AP. You toss this guy on top, you got +2 AP. I don't know how many times I'm going to say it during this video, but you got reroll all hits, hitting on 2s, +1 at wound. It gets nuts so good. He's only 90 points. He has a Terminator profile, so he got the 2-up save and a 4-up invul. He gets the deep strike, so he can help guarantee you get that debuff off. On top of that, he's got Chaos Familiar, so you can blanket damage once per battle. He has pretty okay shooting as well. If you do the focus profile, it's going to be devastating wounds, 24-inch range, so that's pretty good. D6 attacks, strength 6, -2 AP, potentially -3, D3 damage each. So he's like tossing out multi-damage attacks just on his own. I think very much you consider tossing this guy in most lists. Now, it will be rough. You're already bringing a boatload of like Warpsmiths and potentially like Vashtorr. So that is something that holds back Vashtorr. He eats up your points for other HQs, because I would argue a Warpsmith is probably more valuable than even Vashtorr, sadly. Definitely not like damage-wise, but regardless. So fitting this guy in, like, you know, you gotta consider that, but still, considering all the buffs you can toss on your models, dude, this affects your entire army, by the way. It's not a single model. Like, yeah, I definitely think he's worth it. Don't forget, too, Death Hex lasts until your next movement phase, so you get your entire turn, and on your opponent's turn in melee, you're still taking advantage of it. On top of that, if you're to bring Terminators, you can reroll the advance and charges. Truthfully, I would pretty much always run this guy solo. I think Terminators eat up too many points, and we already have, like, really expensive Daemon Engines, so that's not really a route I would go. You could give him the enhancement to give the, the 6-up Feel No Pain. You could give him that enhancement, so there is a little bit of play there, I suppose. But yeah, I very much think you should, like, at least consider this guy for most lists. Any CSM army can use this guy, but Soulforged Warpack, considering all the other stuff they get, dude, it just gets, again, you get into crazy town. Alright, next up, ooh, you knew I had to bring up this guy. So, Lord Discordant, my favorite model in history. Unfortunately, he's neither a vehicle nor a Daemon Engine, so GW, could you, like, fix that already? That's pretty stupid. That said, he's super on theme. He fits the fluff, like, perfectly. He is a Daemon Engine, regardless of what, like, the keywords say. He'd be fantastic for any sort of mirror match. If you fought another Soulforged Warpack, this guy would be like MVP there. He has Corrupt Machine Spirits. It's actually pretty strong. So once per turn, at the start of your opponent's shooting phase, you can select an enemy vehicle within 12 inches invisible. They must take a leadership test. If they pass it, they subtract 1 from all their hit rolls. If they fail it, it can't shoot at all. Can you imagine how big a deal that would be versus like Khorne Lord of Skulls or like Imperial Knights, something like that? I think people do undervalue some of the abilities this guy has. On top of that, he's got Spirit Thief. At the start of your shooting phase, select an enemy vehicle within 12 inches of this model. Until the end of the phase, each time a friendly Heretic Astartes model makes an attack that targets that unit, reroll a wound roll of 1. Oh my god, reroll hits, hitting on 2s, plus 1 AP, now you're rerolling wound rolls of 1 versus vehicles? Like, guys, it gets super duper ultra good. That said, he's obviously kind of a meme pick. If you're going for a fluffy list or you're like a cool guy, so rule of cool overall, very much you can include this guy, but it's really hard to afford him, afford Vashtorr, afford 3 Warpsmiths, maybe a Terminator Sorcerer. Like, it's starting to get a little wild there. That's like half your list in points. So unfortunately, there are a lot of downsides when it comes to Lord Disco. That said, he's a beautiful freaking man. I'm pretty much engaged with this dude. Like, he'll have my heart for all eternity. So still, very much you can expect that Fat Archon, he's still going to be bringing them along. Alright, next up though, so we got some non-Daemon Engines, you know, we're throwing a curveball at you. I think it's ultra extremely important. Do not underestimate the fact that you need scoring, you need cheap scoring at that, you need cheap chaff, you need screening, you need all the other stuff, you need secondary play. Trust me, you do not want your, 190 point Forgefiend having to do an action every turn and not be able to shoot at all. You very much need to be including other units to do that. I think these two are like perfect choices for that. 70 points for the Bikers, only 85 points for the Raptors. They're speedy as hell. I would think Raptors kind of edge them out because they're infantry, so they get to move through walls and all that stuff, but Bikers at only 70 points, that's a crazy steal. They're T5, freaking 12-inch move, 3 wounds each, so you got 9 wounds for 70 points. On top of that, you can give them melt-to-guns, you give them flamers, plasma, whatever you want to do there. They get +1 strength if they get into melee. Granted, truthfully, when you're bringing these sort of guys, I would probably keep them out of combat the majority of times. I'd be hiding them behind terrain and all that stuff, because again, they're solely there for scoring. Raptors, again, I think they might edge them out. You got the deep strike and their infantry, so they can move through walls and all that sort of stuff. They're pretty small, so it's really easy to hide them. You got other options too. Obviously, cultists are going to be choices. Like, again, I just want to make it super clear, do not bring only Daemon Engines unless you want to. Because obviously that's like a super cool idea. So I'm not going to knock you there, but I would always be considering, after you get your list, once you get up to like 1,700 points, something like that, start throwing in the scores, start throwing in the chaff, start throwing in all the extras that make the rest of the army work. Alright, next up though, whoo boy, so we got a Helbrute. I think this guy, so he pops off in most legions. He's super here. Let me get Vashtorr out of the way. He super pops off in this one, man. Again, all the buffs you can toss on people. It gets ridiculous. We gotta count them up. So, alright, you get +1 to hit, reroll all wounds, +1 to wound. You can have both lethals and sustained. You can get +1 AP. You can get +2 AP. You reroll wound rolls of 1 with the Lord Destroyer. We're already up to 7, and that's for, aside from the reroll all wounds and aside from the +1 to hit, I believe all. Oh, and the +1 AP. No, Terminator Sorcerer. Almost all of those affect everybody, not just a single unit. It gets freaking nuts, dude. What other army does that? Can you guys think of another army that does that? Like, post a comment below. I would love to hear the other ones that do it. But again, Helbrute, he is super ultra strong for this army when you consider the reroll the hits, man. Reroll the hits, and you get both lethals and sustain. He's almost an auto-include. I don't think he's quite there, but he is almost an auto-include. Now, sadly, he's not a demon vehicle. He's only quote-unquote a normal vehicle, which is silly. Like, look at this guy. He freaking has flesh coming out of his arms. Like, how's that not a demon engine? Okay, never mind. I take that back, because he is a Chaos Space Marine. But regardless, you got the Strategems, so you can buff him up. That's right. Alright, so we're up to 7 buffs, right? Well, you give this guy 2 melee weapons, he gets +2 attacks on top of it, and then you get the Detachment Rule on top of it for an additional +2 attacks, so you're getting +4 attacks in melee with this guy. So up to what? That's like 8 buffs, I think. I do think that that's probably the way to go when you consider how crazy it gets. You get 9 Helbrute hammer attacks, strength 14, -3 AP, potentially -4, potentially even -5, D6 +1 damage, that gets nuts. Power Scourge, you get up to 12 attacks. Maybe you use the stratagem on him so he becomes a demon. Now you're getting +1 strength on that, so he goes to strength 8. Now he's winning infantry on 2s. Lots and lots lots of value from the Helbrute. Definitely, if you have not been considering this guy, I think you do. Like, toss him in your next list and just see how he goes. On top of that, he's got a 2-up save, so that's fantastic. The big downside is sort of his price. I don't think 130 is like that bad, but you know, that's kind of up there. And then he's slow. He only moves 6 inches, so that is a downside. You can, however, ignore terrain with this guy if you really wanted to. Dude, and he's such a beatstick in melee, like that wouldn't be that bad a choice. Alright, next up though, we got the Predator. So I mentioned it earlier in the video, and you know, it's kind of obvious here. All the buffs you can stack on top, I believe, and you know, tell me if I'm wrong, point out a different unit that is, I believe this will become the most efficient damage output you can possibly get for 130 points. I believe he just gets into Crazy Town, man. When you make him a demon with the stratagem, and then he's like getting all those other buffs, like, what's better than it? He keys off Vashtorr fantastic. I think it's sort of, you get like a discounted like anti-tank when you have Vashtorr and you make him a demon. Because again, your auto cannons go to strength 10. When you're shooting infantry, you get plus 1 AP. You have the stratagem for an additional AP, so you get plus 2 AP there. Sorcerer, you can get plus 3 AP there. His las can go to strength 13, so you're even winning like land raiders on 2s at that point. Very much for 130 points, I think you get into like Clown Town with this dude. They're just as strong as always. Now, obviously, you want to bring Daemon Engines. You don't want to have to spend command points, but I think it's worth it. And it's kind of silly to say that, because yeah, it's a cheap unit. You wouldn't think a 130 point unit would like, you know, deserve all the buffs you can toss on it. No, man, I think he's worth it, really. Now, that said, you also got the Vindicator. Everything that applies to the Predator just about applies to this guy as well. I think he's more specialized into like anti-vehicle, anti-big stuff, because he does have the strength 14, minus 3 AP, d6 damage attacks there. You get the plus 1 to wound when you make him a demon, like that's pretty huge. What's cool too, so if I were, and often I would, bring both a Predator and a Vindicator, I would probably make the Predator a demon first, and then do the Vindicator like turn 2, or you know, whenever you need to, just because he already has the really good strength, the really good AP, all that sort of stuff, so he doesn't even necessarily need those buffs. He does only, quote-unquote, have 24-inch range, but don't forget that the move through wall stratagem works on vehicles, period, not only demon vehicles, so you could get line of sight like easy-peasy with this guy. On top of that, he's got 2-up save and T11. He's strong everywhere. Obviously, when you toss all the, we had 7 buffs, I think, when you toss all those freaking buffs on top of this guy, yeah, dude, yeah, he gains even more value. Alright, next up though, so we got the Forgefiend. Gotta bring this guy along. So he was always awesome. He was especially awesome in like the beginning of the Index era. He was like busted then, sorta. He was, what, he was like 160, maybe 170, and he was ultra good. Sadly, he did get pretty nerfed. He was at 200 points for a long time. Now he's down to 190, which is easier pill to swallow, but when you consider all the buffs we're getting on top of him, this guy gets insane-o good. Again, the Warpsmiths are going to help fix up his downside of how he hurts himself, so the Demonic Ordnance ability, basically you can give yourself dead wounds, and it's not a once per battle or nothing. You use it every turn if you need to, but he does get hazardous. He does have 3 separate weapons as well, so he'd be taking 3 hazardous tests. Well, again, the Warpsmith will help fix that up. Now, do be careful, because again, when you're doing your contracts and stuff, you'll be taking like extra mortal wounds all the time, so do like definitely weigh the pros and cons on if it's worth like using those, unless it's like vital. Maybe don't do it every single turn. Regardless though, with Vashtorr, this guy super duper ultra pops. You're getting the 3d3 attacks, strength 11, minus 3 AP, 3 damage each. Again, with the plus 1 to wound, you're winning like almost every vehicle on 2s, eating every elite and infantry you win on 2s. I think this guy, where he especially gains value, in the new meta, so orcs are really popular right now, and I myself, I've been seeing a lot more horde orc lists, and they are scary, man. It's like, shit, I hope I brought enough firepower. This guy, like, directly shores that up. You would get, I believe it's an average of 18 shots into a 20-man blob of orcs. What's fantastic is they almost always have a feel no pain. Well, the 3 damage profile deals with that easy peasy. If they didn't do their WOG, the minus 3 AP is just going to cut through them like butter. Again, you're rerolling all hits, you're hitting on 2s, like, oh my god. You got exploding hits. I probably should have mentioned that. Like, yeah, I haven't even mentioned that once, aside from the Helbrute. Exploding hits on top of that. I don't even know how many, like, hits you're going to get on average then. That'd be like 20 hits. Hit on 2s, reroll all hits, you would get over 100% conversion rate. Forgefiend's probably the strongest model you can bring in this army. He looks cool as hell too. I very much think you bring at least 1, potentially bring 3 in every single list you run. Alright, next up, we've got the Venomcrawler. So this guy is such a good skirmisher, dude. At only 110 points, he's already fantastic for every single army. You give him all the buffs we got here, he becomes one of the better units in the book. Reason being, the plus 1 to wound is such a big deal on a strength 6 profile. He suddenly becomes, like, legitimate anti-everything. You're ruining any vehicle, well, not any, you're ruining most vehicles on a 4-up at that point. Even land raiders and that sort of stuff, you're still winning them on a 5-up. You bring Vashtorr along, now you're ruining them on 4-ups as well. I think he's great too, is like I said, a skirmisher. I love using this guy to like hold down objectives. So he rushes forward, gets the objective first turn, so I hopefully score primary on my next turn, and then he just hangs around there. Anyone that comes close, he charges them, takes advantage of his Soul Eater ability. If you finish a unit in melee, you get +1 attacks to all of your profiles. He has 2 Excruciator cannons, by the way, so he has 12 attacks baseline. With the Soul Eater, you get up to 14, like easy peasy. I do that all the time. I save him to finish off squads, so some cultist squads on their last model or something, don't mind if I do. Again, you can take advantage of the Dark Pack, so if you are going into something heavy, and maybe you don't have Vashtorr long or whatever, you can always do lethal hits on top of it. Very much, I think Venomcrawler is like worth including in most lists. Where he's especially valuable is newer players, people building up their collections. Venomcrawlers are cheap. I used to see them on eBay for 30 bucks all day, every day, because they used to come in the Start Collecting kit, you know, rest its soul, and so they were everywhere. I'm sure they might have gone up now, because now the Start Collecting doesn't exist anymore, but regardless, Venomcrawlers, if you're a newer player, very much you guys should be, like, considering this, not only for Soulforged Warpack, every army. They're good everywhere you see them. They're, like, one of the premier, like, skirmishing units in the game, in my opinion. Alright, next up, we got one of my favorite Daemon Engines, the Maulerfiend. So, at only 130 points, I would argue he's one of the most efficient units in this army. Don't forget, you're getting the +2 attacks on his fist, so you would have 8 attacks, strength 14, -2 AP, d6 +1 damage. Me, personally, I almost always give him the Magma Cutters. He gets 2 of them, by the way, so you get 4 strength 9, -4 AP, d6 damage shots. Don't forget, you can have Vashtorr, he'd go up to strength 10, like that's pretty awesome. Now you're winning vehicles. Maybe bring a Terminator Sorcerer and use a stratagem. Boom, I'm gonna go up to AP 6, like nothing in the world gets an armor save. He has a great profile, so the 10-inch move, don't forget you can move through walls, this guy's gonna love that. T10, 12 wounds, like that's not bad in the least bit. And then his Siege Crawler, it did get debuffed. He doesn't get to reroll his advance and charges, which would have been so beautiful, but he does get to ignore any modifiers like his move, advance, and charges, so that does have value when it comes up. That's a huge deal, man. When people subtract 2 from your advance and charges, that's like, a lot of times, that's like a 4-inch subtraction you're getting. That said, this army doesn't have access to advance and charge, so you do have an issue there, but regardless, when you're moving through walls, that's sort of like the same, and in fact, I would argue that's like better, honestly. Now, like I mentioned with the in the stratagem section, the tendrils do gain a little bit of value. Because if you're using stratagem where you can regain wounds, I could see where he's like, you know, pretty heavily wounded, you just shove him into a unit of chaff, kill like, you know, wipe the squad, all 10 of them, and regen like 3 to 4 wounds or so. I could see like some use there, but still, I love doing the Magma Cutters because that like specializes him. He is like an anti-big stuff missile. He'll still deal with everything else, but he's like especially good at that. I will say too, tendrils are quote-unquote only 6 attacks. Magma Cutters are 4 attacks, and it's range as well. So yeah, I really don't like tendrils, aside from the rule of cool, because they do look like pretty amazing. Alright, one of my other, like, favorite units, like, in Eternity, since I was, like, a kid, basically, I have loved the Defiler. Even before I played Chaos, he was definitely, like, one of my favorite models. This guy gets a new lease on life. First of all, he got, like, one of the bigger buffs of any unit in 10th edition. He now gets a free counterattack. That's normally a 2 command point stratagem he gets to use for free. People very much are not going to be wanting to charge this guy, and even better than that, they're not going to want to be charging multiple units of yours, because you have a Defiler and a Maulerfiend, or whatever, in combat, they have to attack the Defiler first, or else he's going to, like, chew them up, and that means that you can use a counterattack on somebody else if you need to. Now, you would have to pay 2 CP for that, but regardless, that is such a huge buff. Now again, you get to move through walls. That's what makes this guy like MVP suddenly. That's always been his biggest issue, with how big his legs are and how sprawled like his claws are and all that sort of stuff. He has a hell of a time getting around, especially in 10th edition. The boards really are like way more dense than they used to be. Well, moving through terrain, suddenly that is not an issue in the least bit. In fact, it's an advantage. You get to hide behind terrain like easy peasy and not get shot. I love it. It's so freaking good. On top of that, he takes advantage of both parts of the Detachment Rule. So both his shooting getting +1 to wound, and his melee is getting +2 attacks. Oh my god, man. So this guy's getting ultra super duper buff from Soulforged Warpack. It should be obvious, like I'm not sure why I'm saying it, but by far this is the best Legion for this dude. His Defiler claws are amazing, and they'd be fantastic for tank shock, by the way. So you'd have 7 attacks, strength 16, -3 AP, d6, +1 damage each. You can get into like Magnus, Mortarion, anything like that, and still do a boatload of damage to him. His shooting's not bad in the least bit. You have a twin last cannon, +1 to wound, and reroll the wounds on top of that. That's pretty huge. And again, the free counterattack is one of the better like buffs I've seen. He also eats T10 with 14 wounds and 8-inch moves, so great profile. He is a little spindy, I believe he's 190, but still, I think he's worth including. And for sure, if you're going rule of cool and all that stuff, who doesn't love the Murder Crab? Ooh, alright, next up. So, Mr. Heldrake, how the mighty have fallen. So, unfortunately, this guy really is not competitive in the least. But again, if you're going fluffy, casual, rule of cool, or you're just an awesome guy, very much you can toss this guy in. And obviously, this would be the best Legion for him. His melee is actually pretty decent. So you get 7 attacks with anti-fly 2-up and devastating wounds. There's a lot of models with fly out there. It's not just flyers or planes, it's anti-fly. So, crisis battle suits are going to hate it. Jump infantry are obviously going to hate it. Like, all the sort of stuff. Like, it gets sneaky good with the dev wounds. Because otherwise, the profile is like kind of so-so for 205 points. Now, it is 7 attacks, but strength 7, minus 1 AP, 2 damage each, could be a little better for 205. He has pretty decent shooting as well, so Baleflamer or the autocannon, what I love is he also takes advantage of both parts of the detachment rule, so you get +1 to wound with the range. Baleflamer's gonna love that, man. D6 +3 torrent shots that ignore cover, strength 6, minus 1 AP, 2 damage each, so he'll be like obliterating like marine profiles pretty well there, and then the autocannon's actually pretty valid too. I actually really like the autocannon these days. 6 attacks, 36-inch range, so you can keep them back if you need to. Strength 8, minus 1 AP, 2 damage each, so that's not bad in the least bit. And then his ability, Airborne Predator, does actually like add a bit of value as well. Pretty much anytime he makes an attack that targets a fly unit, you add 1 to the hit roll. Now he's a flyer, he's, you know, with 20-inch move, he's not going to be staying around your 3-inch bubble that often, but getting the +1 hit baseline, like, that means he doesn't necessarily need to be around that bubble to really shine. So very much, again, if you guys are going rule of cool or whatever, you can make use of the Heldrake. And I will say, just from experience, so unfortunately not in 10th edition, but 8th and 9th edition, Heldrake often was my MVP in a lot of my lists. People would often leave, they wouldn't screen their characters well enough. That happens all the freaking time. You can still do it in 10th edition, especially, like, maybe you got a mirror match versus, like, a Warpsmith or something. Yeah, dude, I'll get within 3 inches of him, I'm gonna shoot the shit out of him with a flamer, and I'm gonna shred the shit out of him in melee. So, definitely, you can get use out of him. He's just overcosted. I don't know why GW hates flyers so much. Like, there's something up with 10th edition. They really don't want you using planes. But again, of all the armies that could use it, this is the best one. And in fact, I would say in Soulforged Warpack, this guy might potentially be the best flyer in the game currently. Not that that's saying much. Tau might give him a run for their money, but regardless, Heldrake, awesome model, beautiful model. It's sad that you can't use him more because he takes like ages to paint, so I'd probably love to get him on the table. But again, if you want to run the Heldrake, you found your new home. Alright, finally, we got the big one. Now we're freaking talking. So, Khorne, Lord of Skulls. So what's amazing about this guy and so beautiful, he super duper ultra takes advantage of both parts of the detachment rule. So +1 to wound range, and then +2 attacks melee. He's basically going to wound everything in the game on a 2-up. So, Demon Gorge Cannon, that's strength 14, minus 4 AP, D6 +2 damage, that's huge. Skull Hurler, 2d6 attacks, strength 14 as well, minus 3 damage each, that's huge. You can even go the Gatling Cannon, because with the +1 to wound, you'd be wounding like all the infantry on 2-ups, and every vehicle on at least a 5-up, often a 4-up. His melee, obviously, is like bonkers, so you'd have 7 attacks, strength 16, minus 4 AP, 8 damage each. Rerolling all hits, hitting on 2s, like, you guys want me to tell you again, the minus 5 AP, maybe reroll wounds of 1, oh my god, dude, yeah, he's gonna shred literally any and everything. I think he might be, like, worth his points here, because normally, like, when you bring a giant model like this, like, normally you're paying a tax, you're playing, like, the rule of cool tax, where, yeah, they're not really as efficient as they really could be. In this detachment, when you consider everything you can give him, he might be the most powerful unit in the game. He's probably up there with, like, Shalaxi and that sort of stuff. Don't forget, he's T13, 24 wounds, you give him a 6-up feel no pain if you want, move through walls, like how much freaking like buffs can you toss on a single guy? On top of that, he has like the coolest model on the planet. Now I will say they're really hard to get. I got lucky, I already own one, and I have a few conversions. I have a Khitan Ravager that I run as one sometimes, when my opponent's cool with it. So luckily I still got them. They're like sold out everywhere, they're really freaking expensive, but oh my god are they worth it. And if you play TTS, check out my tutorial video. If you play a Tabletop Simulator, then that ain't no thing. Very much, when I load some of the list here in a little bit, you'll see that there's some fun things with these guys. But yes, Khorne, Lord of Skulls, he's great like everywhere. Here, he's like really competitive, incredibly strong, super scary, man. Your opponent's gonna be like, yeah, shaking in their boots or whatever, just looking at this guy, and when you tell him, oh yeah, I can give him +1 AP, you know, tell him everything you're getting, very much, man. He's gonna be like helping the rest of your army not get shot. Alright, last up, so I got some honorable mentions. So I didn't want to spend too much time on them, but yeah, some honorable mentions, just things to consider. So like I said earlier, it is incredibly important that you guys don't only bring Daemon Engines unless you want to. I think it's incredibly important that you bring cheap units that can score. cheap units that score, screen, hold down your home field. You really don't want like your Khorne Lord of Skulls having to do an action, or better yet, like, or not better yet, but maybe you can't do that action because yeah, you don't want to give up your 450 points worth of like output just for three victory points or whatever. So it's ultra important that you have other people to do that. So I think anything that's cheap and like small is probably the best routes to go. So obviously Cultists at 50 points. I think they belong in almost every list. They have the sticky objectives, so once they do their thing, like you don't even care what happens to them after that. Accursed Cultists, they have the scout move. They're really cheap now. They're only 85 points, so that's a steal. Noise Marines are on the same level. They're only 85 points for a Marine profile. They're like better than Legionaries in a way. They have really good range output, and they're actually really good in melee too if you run them that way, especially if you're bringing like Lucius along. Nurglings, how could you not bring up Nurglings? 40 points for like the premier secondary and mission like players in the entire game. These guys are an auto-include in most lists, and they're going to continue to be an auto-include even in the Soulforged Warpack. And I mentioned it too, this is a really fun little combo you got. If you bring the Fiends of Slaanesh, you do the -1 to people's desperate escape test, you play that stratagem on top of it. Oh my god, dude, people are losing what, 66% of their unit? Just like automatically gets deleted. And like I said, they could have like 10 wound profile, something nutso like that, with a 2-up save and a 2-up in-ball, whatever you want to say. Doesn't matter, man. You roll a 1 through a 4, you're freaking dead. I very much, unfortunately, when I'll show you the list, we're almost there to showing the list. Unfortunately, I didn't have the foresight to make one that has the Fiends in it. I don't think, I guess we'll find out. But dude, like, I'm going to run that list. I think that's so fun. Just have the whole strategy revolve around these guys. And Slaanesh would work fantastic for the whole, yeah, bring scores and stuff. Daemonettes, they're kind of spendy or whatever, but dude, they're fast. Selesky's fantastic as well. Very much, I think this is a really fun little combo. You don't normally bring Slaanesh with, like, CSM lists. This is probably the best one you possibly could. Alright, last up though, so I did want to show you guys some lists. I tried to bring a variety. The big reason being, I know not everybody owns like 12 Daemon Engines. If I look behind me, I think I own like 10. I only have like 3 Forge/Maulerfiends. By the way, magnetize all your stuff. But I have 3 Defilers. I got a bunch of stuff. I got 3 Venomcrawlers. I got a bunch. But I wanted to be sure that I didn't only show lists that have like, yeah, 12 Daemon Engines, because not everybody has that. So I want to make sure I get like the casual players, show them some love. Now, don't get me wrong, I am going to show some lists that are, like, completely Daemon Engines, so, yeah, let's get into it. So, first up, I am going pure Daemon Engine here. So this was the easiest list I've ever written in my life. Basically, nothing but Daemon Engines. Now, obviously, you know, like I said, you gotta bring some sort of chaff, but in this case, there's literally only 2 non-vehicles in this list, aside from the HQs. I did want to make sure I finally got the Heldrake some love. So, you know, this is like a fluffy-ish. This would be really powerful. So make sure your opponent, if you're a casual player, make sure before you play, like, say, you know, maybe hint like, hey, maybe bring some anti-tank. But if you're going more competitive, yeah, you'd probably drop the Heldrake. But no, we're going rule of cool here, so he's coming along. With the Flamer, the anti-fly 2-up, and the extra attacks, all that sort of stuff, I think he will put out a good amount of damage. Like, you guys might be surprised, like, how much work he'll actually do. Is it 205 points worth of work? Like, time will tell, but regardless. Now, had to bring Vashtorr. Again, if you're going the competitive route, it is questionable if you do want to bring Vashtorr. But again, we're going real cool with this list, so gotta bring him along. Again, he gives a 6-inch bubble, a +1 to strength. Everything's gonna love that, man. Strength 15, freaking Vindicators. Even, like, Titans are getting wounded on 2s all of a sudden. Strength 11 Forgefiends, like they're winning vehicles on 2. They got dev wounds on top of that, so armor saves or invols, like that ain't no thing. Venomcrawlers are going to be like key here. They're going to be huge, like holding objectives, getting on objectives. You need action monkeys. Well, these guys would be the action monkeys. Now, this is a lot of units, so you would probably consider like reserving some of these guys. I'd probably reserve like 1 Forgefiend, maybe. No, I wouldn't reserve the Vindicator because I want to use the Stratagem. Granted, you can use Stratagems that are on units in reserve, so actually that might not be that big a deal. Maybe reserve a Venomcrawler. Actually, I don't think I would because they're too speedy. But regardless, be aware of the deployment. That said, you don't have big blobs of stuff. They're just single models, so you probably could deploy everything and get away with it. Obviously, one of the Warpsmiths has the Tempting Addendum. Here's a clue. Every single list I'm going to load has a Tempting Addendum on it, so if you're not bringing that, you probably should choose a different Legion. So, just a heads up. Now, I would say this is going to be a pretty standard, like, Soulforged list. I think, yeah, this is going to be pretty common style right here. As many Daemon Engines as you shove in, probably a Vindicator or Predator or something like that. That said, you have a lot of options for changing it. So just getting rid of the Heldrake alone, dude, you can bring so much, like, scoring and chaff. You can bring a few Raptors, Bikers, more Daemon Engines. You bring, like, a Helbrute, like, any of that sort of stuff. So you definitely have options for changing it. But let's say maybe you don't own like a million Daemon Engines, so you don't have what, like 5 freaking like Forgefiends? Because a lot of times most people I think are only gonna have 3. That's how I myself am. And again, magnetize them, guys. Especially Daemon Engines are so vehicles, period, are so easy to magnetize. You guys 100% need to be doing it, but maybe you don't own that many. So a different route you could go would be Aha, so it definitely still has Daemon Engines, but we brought a few more vehicles, and I think Defilers are pretty common. I know that they're, more Daemon Engines, so it's not quite going a different route, but it's not bringing as many Fiends, because again, I don't think people are going to own 6 of them. Not that many players own 6 of them. Defilers, a whole bunch of CSM players, especially if you've been playing a long time, a whole bunch of them are going to have the Defilers. Again, I got 3 Venomcrawlers. They're just too good not to bring along. Got the 2 Cultists. I think that'll be like pretty common thing you want to do. Again, this is still like pseudo fluffy, so still got Vashtorr in there, giving his little 6-inch bubble. You got a little Warpsmith next to him, giving his little 3-inch bubble. Dude, it gets so nutso when you do it like that. Defilers are gonna love moving through walls. People are gonna hate charging them. Imagine too, if you get 2 of them, and it'd be on your turn actually, or your opponent's turn. 2 of your Defilers get charged by the enemy, 1 of them, no matter what, is going to get to counterattack. Oh my god, that's such a big deal. You got 2 Forgefiends, and only 1 Maulerfiend. Again, the Maulerfiend works fantastic for the move through walls, so that's a great little threat you got. You got 2 Defilers and a Maulerfiend, all like, which one should your opponent take out first? A hard decision there. Again, the Predators go up to strength 10 all of a sudden, so that's pretty awesome when they're next to Vashtorr. So that's pretty fantastic. That's like a cheap or like a discount Vindicator in a sense, I do think the Forgefiends are the best shooting that we have access to. 3 separate blast weapons that go to strength 11 with +1 to wound. You're wounding every vehicle on 2s. Infantry, like any and every infantry you can think of, you're wounding on 2s. Like, dude, that is such good output, even at 190 points. -3 AP, that's ultra valuable in 10th edition. With how like common cover is, like very much you want to have as high AP as you can get. Again, you can boost it up by +1 AP. Maybe change up the list and bring a Terminator Sorcerer, you get +2 AP. Again, I think this will be a very like common style of list, very much so. I think it's like you pick your poison. Do you go shitload of Fiends, or do you mix it up a little with like Defilers and that sort of stuff? I'm on the fence. I think they're both amazing. They're both like some of my favorite models, period, so I wouldn't be able to decide there. Alright though, so what if you want to go more competitive though? Because Vashtorr, the Heldrake, obviously, some of those aren't like the most competitive options. So here's like the route I would probably like consider if I was going more competitive. So you'll probably notice I bring a lot more scoring. So Nurglings, obviously, Bikers, I think they're fantastic. Warp Talons, A, they're already amazing. B, they have like the best ability in the game. They can go back into strat reserves each turn. C, they're jump infantry, so you can deep strike, move through walls because they're infantry. You got 12-inch moves, so they'll be fantastic. Now you could swap them for Raptors. If you need the points, you very much could like swap them out a little bit. Now you'll notice I didn't bring any Cultists. That is something else you could swap in if you wanted to. Reason being though, this is going to be more of like a castle build. So again, Tempting Addendum, it's every single freaking list. With Tempting Addendum, it's mainly going to be like for range units. Again, you don't want your Warpsmith getting anywhere near your opponent's army if you can help it, especially the dude with the relic. Like, he's like, definitely keep that guy alive. So I think he'll be staying back. I don't think you necessarily need Cultists in that case, because it wouldn't be that hard to leave, maybe just a Venomcrawler, even a Forgefiend, something to get line of sight or whatever. Just leave him behind. Truthfully, Predator might be the best choice there, because he has the 48-inch range. On top of that, we got the Helbrute. So basically, these guys are, it's like a buddy cop movie or whatever. These guys are just hanging out next to each other, trundling up the board, giving everybody else all those buffs on top of it. What's cool with all the speedy stuff, so they're rushing forward, getting on objectives, your opponent's going to have a hard choice to make, man. Do they shoot the units that are like tearing up their army from across the board, or do they take care of your scoring units? That is a tough decision to make. You can infiltrate the Nurglings if you need to, and truthfully, you got Warp Talons, so you already got Deep Strike covered. Yeah, I think I would infiltrate them. If you go first, yeah, dude, you probably just won the game. Like, holy shit. Even if you go second, it'll move block your opponent slightly. It might like buy you a turn to get onto the objectives, all that sort of stuff. Now, if for whatever reason you don't like the Helbrute, maybe you don't own it, maybe you think it's too expensive, whatever the reason is, you could very much bring like a Maulerfiend, because that is something this list could use, is more like melee hitters. It's all range when it comes to the vehicles, so that is something you could change. I've said it before, but I think the Predators are like discounted Vindicators, in a sense. When you start the +1 to wound and all that sort of stuff, like, I think they're cheap, like, anti-everything, so definitely I think they're valid. I could see even like Traitor Guardsmen might be a decent choice. So maybe get rid of one of the Bikers and bring Traitor Guardsmen, because you get the 2 objective control on them. They're itty bitty little bases, so they're pretty easy to hide. By the way, I'm not sure if I already mentioned it, but the list will be in the description below. So if you guys want to look at all the different like relics I gave them, all that sort of stuff, better yet, tweak them for your own playstyle or your own local meta, go on ahead and check the description below. Next up, though, so this is one style for comp play. What about something I would want to play? Well, you know, if I was going for a fun list, what would I bring? Well, you know, it'd have to include a Lord Discordant, so that's how we changed it up. In this case, I gave him the Forge's Blessing, so he has the 6-up Feel No Pain buff that he can give out to 12 freaking inches, so that's pretty good range, especially when you consider how, like, big his base is. He would be able to stick with the Lord Discordant. By the way, we got Mrs. Claus and Mr. Claus hanging out together. So they would basically be like, yeah, they'd be like glued to each other. And then Lord Discordant would be nearby too. You're giving him 6-up Feel No Pain, rerolling all the hits, hitting on 2s, wounding D3 or healing D3 wounds every turn, all that sort of stuff. So obviously that has a shitload of power behind it there. On top of that, yeah, dude, you got the classic. You got the 3 freaking Forgefiend, 2 Maulerfiends, and only 2 Venomcrawlers. I did still want the scoring. Hammer it on your head, guys. You don't just do Daemon Engine unless you really want to. And maybe I'm wrong. I could very well be wrong. With the amount of buffs you're getting and the amount of value, the added value you're getting on all your units, okay, sure, I could see the debate there. But I think fast and cheap is like the way to go. So Bikers at only 70 points, it's fantastic. Sadly, they can't move through walls, so that might be a little bit of an issue there. You could swap them out for like Raptors if you shuffle the list around. I would be tempted, too, to bring another Warpsmith, so I only have a single Warpsmith, which is definitely like, alright, this is sort of a meme list. Had to bring the Lord Disco, though. I would be tempted to bring another Warpsmith that had the plus 4-inch move enhancement. I think that would have a little bit of value, because he'd be able to stay with the Khorne Lord Skulls easily. Maybe this guy, like, dies somehow sadly. You definitely don't want that to happen, but maybe he dies, he could still give him the buffs, or, but yet, he could buff somebody else, so like the Maulerfiends. For sure, your Maulerfiends would be running ahead of your guys otherwise. With only 6-inch move, even with the advances and all that stuff, after like turn 2, maybe turn 3, you're really gonna have a hell of a time sticking with them. I think that's another like sticking point with this list. With only 2 characters, missions like the Ritual or any of the ones that like require a character, like you will kind of struggle there. And who knows when the new mission pack comes out, like who knows how that's gonna play. But, alright, so I have one more list I want to show you guys. Can you guys tell I'm super ultra hype on Soulforged Warpack? I'm like, this is by far my favorite army in the game right now. But, alright, so maybe you're like a super swell guy and you have really cool ideas. Why not bring 3 Khorne Lord of Skulls? Now, I did get some complaints. I think it's my Fellhammer Siege Host video. I had people saying, like, well, I can't have 3 Khorne Lord of Skulls. Well, first of all, you play TTS. Second of all, there are people out there that have 3 Khorne Lord of Skulls. Third of all, you know, I switch up the list. Maybe you only own 2. Well, drop one of them. You got almost 500 points of, like, cool stuff to bring. In this case, so, tempting addendum, as always, and I gave the other one. He has the Forge's Blessing as well, so gives the 6-up Feel No Pain. I brought a bunch of chaff this time. Basically, so, you're putting a shitload of points into Khorne Lord of Skulls and their Warpsmiths, so you gotta bring as much bodies as you can to do everything else. So we got, what? We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 squads of cultists, and then 2 bikers. Very much I could see dropping one of these, and maybe swapping the bikers to like Raptors. I do think that would be a valid route to go. If you guys can't tell, I really do love Raptors. I should hype them up more, man, because they've won me a million games, like, all on their own. Them being cheap little scores, a lot of times they get ignored. They have deceptively good output with their 2 Meltas and all that sort of stuff. That said, bikers have really good output as well. They, too, have the Meltas, so, like, you know, dealer's choice there. For the Khorne Lord Skulls, so I did give them names. So what, we got Jim, Chuck, and Larry, I believe. Oh, Barry, excuse me, Barry. Gotta name your Lord of Skulls. If you bring 3 of them, you very much need to give them nicknames. I think this would be ultra fun, and this legitimately, this would be powerful. You could go to a tournament with this. RTT, for sure, dude, you'd have no problem. I think it even could win like a GT, potentially even a major. If you're a really good general, man, you can get a boatload out of these guys. You're moving through walls. You already got the +1 to wound. You get a +1 AP. You're healing them. You give them +1 to hit for each and every one of them. It's nutso, man. These become like, what is a more powerful unit in the game? When you consider the, we counted, it was like 7 buffs, maybe 8 buffs you can give them. Like, what is a more powerful unit? I'm not sure there is one, even at 450 points. The strategy for this army, though, should be obvious, man. Can you kill me before I kill you? Can you kill my 3 Khorne Lord of Skulls before I kill you? A smart opponent, in my opinion, would be taking out all your other units, because dealing with the Khorne Lord of Skulls, T13, 24 wounds, with a 6-up Feel No Pain often, like, that'll be kind of hard to do. So if I was fighting you, very much, I'd kill your bikers first, and I'd be doing my most to get, well, probably the buffers, honestly, but also the cultists. But regardless, it has a really straightforward, fun playstyle. If you don't own the models, guys, check out Tabletop Simulator. I have a tutorial tutorial for it. It's really not that hard to set up. It's only 10 bucks. So do bear that in mind. It's not an impossible dream if you want to like have fun with these guys. And look at how beautiful the models are. Oh man, I love Daemon Engine so freaking much. And if you guys didn't know the lore behind the Khorne Lord of Skulls, he has tanks of murderers' blood. He literally melts people with the blood of murderers. It's the best lore in the game. I know some people think he looks like cheesy or whatever. Hell no. That's the best part about him, dude, is, you know, how goofy he looks. Anyways, though, so hopefully this gave you guys a few different ideas of the routes you can go. Obviously, you're going Daemon Engine heavy. Like, you can't avoid that. Again, if you're not bringing Daemon Engines, like, why are you even playing this list? If you don't own Warpsmiths, get either kit bashing, 3D print, or go out and buy some. They're not that expensive. I think they're 40 bucks each, which in GW terms is, like, extra cheap. I believe I only own 2, and truthfully, like, hand to God, I'm gonna buy another one after this video, because, yes, I need 3. Very much I need 3 of them. Oof. Anyways, though, so hopefully this had some like fun ideas for you guys. I hope you guys got enough, as much enjoyment out of this video as I did. Hopefully it's like coming across how like incredibly hyped I am on this army. By the way, I hope you guys enjoy the diorama I set up. I don't want to admit like how much time I spent on it and we don't even like look at it, but Tower getting their butt kicked, which I definitely enjoy. I did give them, you know, I give them some real firepower. They got the freaking like Storm Surge sitting in the back, all that sort of stuff. They even got some stealth suits in the back, you know, being all sneaky, doing stealth stuff. I did enjoy it. I'm a nerd, if you guys didn't know that about me. But regardless, I would love to hear your guys' thoughts on Soulforged Warpack. Are they as awesome as I think? Am I maybe I'm not thinking it through? Maybe the fact that they do so much damage themselves, like maybe they're really not that good. Maybe they're like just mid-tier, whatever. Or are they like, are you guys as hype on them as I am? I would love to hear your guys' thoughts on it. Did you guys enjoy the list? What list are you guys going to run on your own? Most importantly, did I miss a combo or something? Is there some neat little trick or like character with enhancement that I didn't think of? Maybe that 5-up regen for the command points. I could very much see that being like worth it. Maybe on like a jump lord, something like that. As always, if you guys have any questions whatsoever, whether it's about this army, modeling, I've done a lot of modeling, so if you need tips like how do I magnetize or anything like that, I'd be happy to help. You need tips for painting, I got no issue with that. As always, if you haven't already, please consider liking and subscribing. I do have a link to my Patreon in the description below if you guys like to support the channel that way. Regardless though, I hope you guys enjoyed the video as much as I did. Thanks for watching. I love you guys from the bottom of my heart. You guys rock. Good luck out there, and remember, death to the false emperor.